We are live.
Okay, we are live, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Seth Bongartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District and I'm chair of the Senate Education Committee. I'll have the other members introduce themselves in a minute.
Sorry,
Whoops.
we're not live yet.
Oh, we're not live. Okay. You have to hear me say it again.
Now we are live.
Okay, now we're live. Okay. So again, my name is Seth Bongartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District and I'm chair of the Senate Education Committee. We had a couple of members had to leave early. Senator Ron Hinsdale and Senator Hashim were here earlier. And just to give you a quick overview, we have visited 5 districts across the state toward the end of the summer, or now nearing winter here. We tried last year a couple of times to get out of the building during the session, visit schools, and because it is so hectic, we just gave up. Not going to happen. So we're doing it now before the session starts to get to interact with schools and with members of the community. We started off, we visited Canaan School, one of the tiniest schools in Vermont, up in the northeast corner of the state. If there's a school in Vermont that is truly small by necessity, it's probably Canaan. That was incredibly informative. And then we went next to Woodstock. And then we went to Rutland, we went to CVU, and now we're here for our fifth of the 5. And at each stop, we've had a student panel, teachers panel, and today we had a principals panel from across the district. And what we're really trying to do is step back a little bit from the immediacy of the issue a lot of you have on your mind, and focus on how we provide excellent educational opportunity for every Vermont student. That's what we're talking about here, is providing excellent opportunity for every Vermont student. And we try to, with these visits, do it in different settings, very different settings. And today we're at a school serving a very rural area. And so the sort of focus here has been a little bit, how do you achieve excellent educational opportunity? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And what are the schools actually doing to embrace every student? And we're hearing loud and clear across all of these districts that that's actually what's going on. We heard it loud and clear here today, the notion of embracing every student and trying to provide the kind of opportunity that we're looking for. So we've ended each one of these with an opportunity for the public to come in and speak to the committee, because you don't always get that opportunity. And by the way, one of the great things about what we've been able to do with these is it's during the session, we don't get to hear as much from students, from teachers, and even principals as we do more like superintendents and some of the advocacy organizations. So it's really been wonderful to be able to take the time and hear from the whole range of people much closer to the ground than we sometimes get a chance to do. So that's one of the reasons that we did it. So with that, and so we have, as we said, we have enough people signed up so that we think we can get away with doing 3 minutes, which is a little bit more than we've done in some. But why don't we start by introducing?
Hello, Steve Heffernan, Addison County District.
Good afternoon, David Weeks, representing Rutland County, and I live in Proctor.
Gary Williams, also representing Rutland County, I live in Polk.
For what it's worth, I live in Manchester and you live in
Bristol.
So with that, I think, has anybody left anything out that I should have mentioned? No. Okay. Then why don't we take our first witness? I'm just going to do them in the order that they're got put in front of me here. And by the way, this chair is for the person speaking. That chair is for the on-deck speaker. So I'll keep trying to give the on-deck person a cue to come up, because it then makes it move a little bit more quickly. And I think we would have you stand and use the microphone. But with the on-deck has worked pretty well in other ones. So we're going to start with Greg Hughes. Yeah, Greg Hughes. And then on deck is Joshua, boy, Okay, you know, okay. You'll be, so by the way, in each instance, if you could just start by giving us your name and your town of residence. And then you have, then 3 minutes. And, so we're trying to, again, we're trying to focus on providing excellent educational opportunities for every Vermont child.
We good?
We're good to go. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Senators. Thank you for coming to the White River Valley. My name is Greg Hughes. I live in Bethel. And I'd like to point out to you that the White River Valley Supervisory Union is a case study that fully supports the recommendations of the Vermont Redistricting Task Force. We had been 2 supervisory unions and we merged into 1. We voluntarily closed 4 high schools. Bethel and Royalton formed a unified school district, and our results, my guess at this point is you've realized they've been quite impressive. Our enrollments are up, they're way up. Our cost per student is down. Our academic offerings have expanded to the point where we now offer AP courses, which we hadn't done in the past. And most importantly, our tax rates have stabilized. The taxpayers of Bethel and Royalton have not had the tax increases that have plagued the rest of the state for the past 5 years. Do we still need help? Yes, we do still need help. And that's where the cooperative education service agreements that were recommended by the task force would help us. It would help us down the road in the process of reducing our special ed expenditures, our professional development expenditures, and our office expenditures. There's a lot of cumulative savings that can be generated for us in this process. So I'd like to repeat that the Vermont Redistricting Task Force was successful. They've given the state a very viable path forward, and their recommendations should be seriously considered by the state. Thank you.
Right. On deck is Sarah Root.
Thank you for meeting with us today. Coming from a perspective of a recent transplant and also a parent and a WRVSU school board member. My name is Joshua Dukowitz. I live in Stockbridge, Vermont, small town of hovering around 800 people. We moved from Boston a year and a half ago after a year of BPS, where great reputation for higher education, not so much public education. Firsthand saw my 5-year-old son get bullied and watched his beautiful, wonderful personality be viewed. We toured here 2 years ago in Stockbridge and met Lindy Stetson, where she shared this environment of a cousin-like atmosphere. And that's exactly what my son has experienced. Kids of all ages uniting with one another and bonding and acting more like cousins and family members, and older kids mentoring younger kids as a school board, and just watching him absolutely thrive in this environment. And so haven't we as a family. Just in this town, there is many transplants that have similar story that I think is being overlooked, that people are coming here by choice, young people with families, something that Vermont is very aware of. We're getting older, we need fresh blood and young people in this community. And that's what we found as we've been embraced by this small local town of Stockbridge. And as a school board member, I can say confidently that WRVSU is not part of the problem. We are part of the solution. We are small, scrappy, but efficient. Our district spends below the state per pupil average, and our taxes stay stable thanks to responsible WRVSU leadership. Our district is financially responsible for the fiscal year of 2026. Our projected tax impact is just 0.0106% in Stockbridge. The schools, our schools provide students with access to healthcare, dental care, mental health services right on site. Otherwise, we'd have to be traveling mountains in order to get these services. Instead of addressing the true drivers of rising costs in healthcare, healthcare and insurance systems are really the driving force of the increased tax that we find. And also, we need to look at the tax system as a whole, especially our property values and how we fund education. 60 to 75-minute ride of unsupervised bus rides away from their communities and families is not the answer for our kids. Our kids who have just gotten through COVID, we don't need to put this generation through anymore. That's all I have time for. Thank you very much. And I have much.
Hannah Prince is on deck.
Hi, my name is Sarah Root, and I come to you today as Chair of the Stratford School Board and a member of the White River Valley Supervisory Union. The RSU is a high-functioning supervisory union, as I believe you have seen today. I believe the reason we are successful is because of the type of leadership our team provides. We support our faculty, help by giving them time to collaborate with each other, to learn and to troubleshoot. Our faculty has data about their students that I wish that when I had been a primary teacher, and they work collaboratively and they help our students excel. We work together across the SU. We support each other across the SU, and we learn from each other across the SU. Creating large districts and SUs will not solve the economic challenges in our state, and there is no data to support this. The governor and the Secretary of Education have not provided any research to support their claims of cost savings. What it will do is create chaos and burn out our SU staff, and all that will negatively affect the learning outcomes of our students. I totally believe the redistricting task force intended to create up to 3 maps when they started in August. The reality that they reluctantly learned was that forced mergers and huge districts would not work and would not save money and would not increase student outcomes. The governor and the legislative leadership can say that it will, but they are wrong, and they can't show us data that shows that it will work. I am a 7th generation Vermonter. I graduated from Newton School in Stratford. I graduated from Montpelier High School in Montpelier and the University of Vermont. I taught elementary school for 14 years in Vermont and New Hampshire. I then went on to work for the National Education Association in New Hampshire, and then eventually to the NEA nationally. I have been involved in my whole life in some part of the educational system. I believe in Vermont. What the governor and the Secretary of Education have presented will not solve economic issues in Vermont. It is short-sighted and frankly will hurt Vermont's small towns, which make up most of Vermont. I will fight to save our small rural schools. I believe that the redistricting task force delivered us a workable solution for Vermont. Please do not support the governor's proposal. Make him show us the projected savings and outcomes and stand with the redistricting task force. Thank you.
And Carrie Claudette Gilala is on deck.
Hi there, folks. My name is Hannah Prince, and I'm coming from Stockbridge. We've lived here for 9 years now. We had an older child that finished out school with Stockbridge, and we now have our 8-year-old over at Stockbridge. I cannot say enough. We come from Louisiana, and I came from a 5A school myself, thousands of students feeling like a number. What I've received here in Stockbridge and, the surrounding region, it's just a feeling, a real true feeling of community. I'm part of the PTO as well as the Farm and Forest community initiative that we have. We're starting that and the kids are excited. We have educators that are excited to carry on and go on with this program. I really ask you guys to consider our communities and just the real value of community. Yeah, I really thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Let's start, let's keep this going. Kathy Galuzzo is on deck. And while I'm speaking, I'll note that Senator Becca White has joined us. Is here for the public comment portion of the day. So, you're on.
My name is Carrie Kalantulala. I'm a retired special education teacher, and I was in my last role as a public school teacher. I was the department chair of special education at Spalding High School in Barry. I live in Chelsea, where I'm on the select board. I'm not here as a select board member. I'm here as a community member and somebody who's very concerned about what's happening to our small rural schools. I'm probably gonna echo what most of the other people have already spoken to here. But I don't know that you would find many people in Chelsea who regrets the decision to not fight the closure of the high school in Chelsea. I think the high school was the heart of the community and generations of families attended. There's so much that was lost. It was the heart. It was the absolute heart of our town, where people gathered for sports events and arts events and musical productions. It's so fragmented now. It's so fragmented. There was a family that in the first year of the consolidation, I knew a family that had a child in elementary school, middle school, and high school. And both parents worked. One of them was an educator. So the logistics of getting those three children to school, you want to talk about impact on education. You want to talk about how exhausted kids are by the time they get to school after spending time on buses. And time at the end of the day on buses, not with their families, not in their school community. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There are so many things, I watched, though I was the department chair, I had a caseload of 26 students who were in out-of-district placements. 26 students cost the Barry School District $2.3 million a year. I had students that were placed in programs as far as Alabama. I had a student in Massachusetts and Connecticut because the communities in Vermont couldn't sustain or they couldn't maintain the needs of those children. So rather than, I just feel like if communities came together to pool their resources, but not dismantle their schools, they could be doing so much more for children who need more, who need something else. The scores aren't going to go up because you put a kid on a bus for a longer period of time. The schools aren't going to improve because you've got, parents worn down from having to work all day and having to drive the distances that they have to go to many different schools that their children are attending. I just feel like, as the woman who spoke before me and the woman from Stratford said, the heart, consider the heart of these communities. Consider what you're dismantling when you take away those schools, please. Thank you.
Howie Mendel is on deck.
Hello, I'm Kathy Paluzzo. I am lifelong resident of Tunbridge, Vermont, and I'm also the White River Valley Supervisory Chair and Chair of the Tunbridge School Board. So if you guys have any questions for me, please ask. But I would like you to consider not just the long bus rides for students. For me, it was really important to me to participate in all of my children's activities like basketball games and after-school programs, and to be able to be there and be a supportive parent. Most of us people who live in a small community can commute for work to somewhere. So a lot of times the school, if we're putting kids on bus rides further away, that puts them further away from where we work. So now parents are not able to participate or join in any of those things because now it's even further away. So it doesn't seem fair that that would be asked of us. And I think that if you take a look at our supervisory union, we do a really good job of working together. Our towns, I've been doing this for 20 years now as a school board member. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hudson, I can't quite read it. Rainey is on deck. And I will also note that Senator Clarkson has joined us. Sitting in to listen. Welcome, Senator White.
Right. Hi, I'm Hallie Manzel. I'm the president of the Stockbridge PTO, local business owner and a lifelong Vermont resident. I grew up attending a rural school and am here to ensure that my children have the same opportunity. Our school is far more than a place where lessons are taught. It is where children are nurtured, supported, and known as individuals. It is the heart of our town, where families gather, community events are held, and children grow up feeling seen and valued. In a rural community like ours, the school is the last remaining public institution that connects people. Closing or merging it would not simply reorganize education, it would fundamentally weaken the fabric of our town and the learning environment for our children. From a fiscal standpoint, our school is run responsibly. Our per pupil spending is reasonable and reflects the realities of rural education, not excess. We have been careful stewards of public funds, and there is no evidence that closing our school will result in meaningful long-term tax savings for our town. Most importantly, this decision directly affects the daily lives and well-being of our children. My own children are 7 and 10 years old. Forcing them to spend more than 2 hours each day on a bus, often without supervision, is neither developmentally appropriate nor safe. That time comes at the expense of learning, family connection, rest, and participation in extracurricular events. Long, unsupervised commutes place an unnecessary burden on young children and undermine the conditions they need to succeed. At its core, this decision is about how we choose to educate our children and what kind of future we are building for them. Education works best when children feel safe, supported, and connected to their school community. Investing in accessible community-based education affirms that every child matters, regardless of geography. Strong rural schools help raise engaged citizens, sustain local communities, and ensure Vermont's future is rooted in care, responsibility, and opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Katie Stiles is on deck. Now you're on.
Hi there, my name is Hudson Wren. I'm 18 years old and I've lived in Windsor, Vermont my entire life. In last November, voters asked for property tax relief. They did not ask for a top-down approach for consolidating education system. We learned our lesson with Act 46 about 10 years ago, where yes, it saved money in some cases, but in other cases it didn't. Yet Democratic leadership and the governor passed Act 73 without addressing those fundamental costs, the cost drivers, and that is continuing to drive up our property taxes. Voters are going to be pissed. I can guarantee you that at the polls, people will remember that the taxes go up every 2 years because we've kept kicking this can down the road. We need to actually address the cost drivers and not keep the consolidation isn't going to save money, but the BOSID model is an option. So let's take that option and run with it. That will actually give some immediate tax relief to our constituents. Thank you.
Before we start,
Sana,
Okay, good. You're good. Okay.
Hi.
Now you're on.
My name is Katie Stiles, and I'm a parent on the PTO, part of our Farm and Forest Initiative, and a business owner in Stockbridge, Vermont. And I'm deeply concerned that the most consequential debate about public education in our state has been reduced almost entirely to finances. Particularly when the finance assumptions being cited don't reference what is actually happening in a rural district like ours, which is one that is small by necessity, while also being one of the largest geographically. In the WRVSU, 5 of 10 towns saw decreases in residential tax rates in fiscal year 26, ranging from 12.6% to 1.1%. And 2 of those towns, Stockbridge and Rochester, also reduced per pupil spending this year. And I know this because I attend our local town meeting and budget vote and hear about the work our school admins actively do to operate our budgets, to avoid overage penalties, and to deliver for our kids. The claim that small rural schools are driving rising education costs is simply not supported by the concrete data from our district. Just as important is who our rural schools serve. Increasingly, our school communities are made up.
It's always just two.
Increasingly, our school communities are made up of families who have recently relocated to Vermont. Families directly contributing to the state's modest population growth at a time when Vermont is rapidly aging and actively trying to attract and retain younger residents. Eliminating access to local schools puts that fragile progress at risk and undermines one of the strongest incentives for families to settle here. I relocated to Vermont from New York City 11 years ago and now raise my son and operate 3 businesses here, all of which are among the many contributing to the 750 million in additional statewide education funding. And we do so willingly because we believe in a strong public education system. But that investment must include maintaining access to well-functioning rural schools. Closing rural schools that are lowering per pupil costs, reinvesting locally and sustaining our communities based on arbitrary classroom sizes as proposed by Act 73 would not just harm families and our kids, it would actively weaken the very rural communities whose residents and businesses are helping to support Vermont's education system as a whole. It feels telling that our rural district is among the last to be visited in this process, while potentially being one of the first field of consequences if these proposals move forward. Rural communities are often discussed in the abstract because policy is shaped by averages and efficiency models rather than lived realities. So here is the lived reality you should take away from the WRVSU. Our school should be a model district. We have fiscally responsible leadership who are fiercely dedicated to our kids and an involved and engaged community committed to our local schools.
Heel Salon is on deck.
Members of the Senate Education Committee, thank you so much for being here today. I come to you before you as an educator, parent, member of the Stratford School Board and White River Valley Supervisory Union, and invested member of my community. Our school is the heartbeat of our community. I'm a transplant, originally having spent 12 years in Alaska, where I was witness to education being gutted. It was absolutely heartbreaking seeing the lesser care and attention extended to the students that were attending. Education was a factor in my move when I was offered a position here. I understand that this attempt at education reform is centered around saving costs. While I agree that costs and spending are high when education reform is driven by cost savings and not improving our education system, then the basis is already flawed. High healthcare costs and other driving factors must also be addressed at the root. Saving money is the byproduct of a thoughtful, measured reform process. It happens when we work with communities to figure out the best pathway forward, not by trying to force a half-baked vision. Efficiency and evolving our education system should not be an afterthought. Where is the evidence that the governor's proposal will actually work? The process is causing harm now and will cause harm in the future, whether it's forcing longer bus rides for students or results in a loss of local school services. The long-term impacts are not measurable by simple metrics. We need an educated Vermont to endure and thrive for the future. This attempt at reform is highly unpopular, and yet the Governor and Secretary of Education continue to push it in spite of the evidence that it will not work. Vermonters should not be treated like children who don't want to take medicine that they're told is good for them when they see evidence to the contrary over and over again. Vermonters are educated, considerate, and measured, from our farmers to artisans and tradesfolk to academics, and sometimes a combination of all of those things. Each bring to the table their own wisdom and perspective, especially those in rural communities. If you want to look at efficiencies and savings, why not have an assessment done to determine existing models that do this well? My supervisory union is a stellar example of how this can work while keeping our rural schools running. I am proud to be a part of that union. I have test scores right here showing us outperforming Vermont averages as a result of all the hard work our leadership and members have done to bring us here. As an educator, I am baffled by the Governor and Secretary of Education's determination to not let go of this proposal when the redistricting task force has already taken our feedback into consideration and offered a tangible and workable way forward. Please do not support the Governor's proposal. Please hear what we are telling you. Those of us who see positive results every day as a result of what our supervisory union accomplishes, because we pool resources and coordinate as a unit. Thank you so much for your time.
Philo LaGrange is on deck.
Hello, I'm Teal Fallon. I am a parent of a middle schooler and elementary schooler in Bethel. And I am the after-school club coordinator at the middle school. Thank you for opening the floor to public comment. I'd like to talk a little bit about what happens after school, about what happens after the bell rings. when kids leave, how long that bus ride is. Many people have mentioned that. I actually went to Woodstock, which I think you guys have visited, you mentioned. And they had a very robust after-school program when I was there. I participated in theater. There was like every single sport. But those bus rides were really long, and kids who did not have parents who could help them with transportation have limited access to those things. And having programs in a smaller community really gives more access to kids. Here, we're able to take advantage of the Tri-Valley bus as well to get kids home. And it's easier for parents to pick their kids up from a program that ends at 4:30 if they live close by. So I just would want to know that there was some thought given to what those opportunities are going to be for kids going forward if they had a longer distance from school. I think that I have heard people talk about after-school programs a little bit condescendingly as if it's a secondary thing, but I would to challenge the notion that our duty to our children ends at the end of the school day. So much of what education is and what teachers do and why education is so complex is because a lot of that is fallow parenting. And studies show that the more consistent, trustworthy caregivers that a human being has in their youth, the more well-adjusted and successful an adult they will be. And that is what teachers are doing all day, and that is what we can do by providing a safe environment for kids to pursue their interests, to get exercise, to solve problems, to experience opportunities to step up and be a leader that they might not otherwise take. I actually maybe have time for the story. I had one kid in my program who felt passed over for leading a game, and the advisor gently suggested that we needed to see some more leadership from that student. The student was upset and didn't seem to understand what that meant to us. I asked the student what they thought leadership meant, and they pointed to a definition on their phone. So I said, okay, let's put that away. Humor me, do a thought experiment, and turn towards your classmates with curiosity. What are they doing? What are they thinking? How are they experiencing this game that means so much to you? It was D&D, just so you know, which is very creative and fosters storytelling as well as collaboration, cooperation, leadership. So by the end of that day, this kid agreed and did what I had asked, and 2 weeks later was DMing their own game. This is a child who is often quiet, reserved, does not interact with their peers. I know this child, I've known this child for years, their family has experienced tragedy, there's a lot for that kid to deal with in their life. And they have behavioral problems during the school day. This was an opportunity for them to experience a different way of being and moving through the world that I don't think that they could have had if they had to instead get on a bus, go home to a dark house, get off that bus at 5 o'clock and wait for their parents to get home. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, this committee is very interesting. So,
Yes, very encouraging. Thank you. That's all we want.
Dana Grossman is on that.
Hello, my name is Tyler LaGrange and I live in Royalton. My family has been here in rural Vermont for just 5 years now. One kid graduated a year or so ago and the other is currently a junior. In most ways, these decisions won't have much impact on me and it would be easy to just let everyone else make these decisions for me. But I feel compelled to speak out for what I've seen working since we've been here. My oldest is now in college, pursuing their artistic passions. My youngest is here, is more interested in learning than they've ever been and participates in band, you saw them here, bowling and drama and more. I don't know how much the day-to-day general education would change if further consolidation happened, but I do know that if I had to drive 2 or 3 or 4 towns away to get them to all their practices and matches and whatever activities, that would be significantly harder to deal with. And they'd also be less inclined to participate in as many things because it's just a lot of overhead for them too. there's just nothing that can alleviate enough of that, and it's 100% going to mean less opportunities for our kids and more stress and associated costs for parents. That's point one. My second point, I just want to say that I've written to Superintendent Canarney once or twice a year, often with something that I'm a bit agitated about. He's written me back every single time, and I felt heard every single time. That says a lot about him in general, the right person for the right job, but there's also just a limit to how much that scales. You guys know that too, because I've actually written letters to my congressman, and you guys, and I haven't gotten a response back every time. So it just doesn't scale. But one other thing I just want to point out that stands out is there was a police-involved gun-related incident event that happened overnight a year or two ago that just filled parents with anxiety. I brought my kid to school that morning. I'm a little hesitant, and Canarney was standing out front of the school, and I was able to shake his hand and chat with him for a few minutes, and that small gesture of him being here when that was going on made a world of difference that day. So even if our Superintendent Canarney is in charge of 2 or 3 times as many schools and towns, as great as he's been, there's just a limit to the availability and his ability to be there for schools, and parents, and teachers, and faculty, and school boards, and events, and so on. I get that you're in a tough position between the governor having grand plans and Vermonters needing financial relief, and I get that you put significant effort into the bill at hand. But I have far more belief that Canarney and this supervisory union can provide informed guidance towards viable fixes. The details I've gleaned from the bill currently as it stands has way more Phil Scott than Superintendent Canarney, and that's not a plan I can get behind, and I just don't think it's good for our towns or many of the other small towns across Vermont. Thank you.
Dustin Ray is on deck.
You're on.
I'm Dana Grossman, and my husband Dan and I have lived in Thetford for 53 years. And both of us have held positions with the Thetford Town School District and Thetford Academy board roles and various other roles. Both our daughters went all the way through Thetford schools, graduated from Thetford Academy in 94 and 99. We are still involved in the schools because they do more than educate our students. As many of the previous speakers have said, they are the fabric of our communities. I would like to commend the White River Valley School District for holding this meeting today. I would like to commend the Senate Education Committee for your willingness to get out of the State House and around the state and hold these listening sessions. And I would very much like to commend the task force for its hard, thoughtful, data-driven work, and for all the reasons that the previous speakers have said. I wholeheartedly also support their recommendation.
And Margaret McQueen is on deck.
Hi there, my name is Dustin Ray, and I live in Stratford, Vermont. And actually, because of my accent, they suggested I live in South Stratford, Vermont. Yeah, I just come to you. I'm also a school board member for Stratford, and I just, in our supervisory union, I've seen how close relationships and local knowledge directly improve outcomes for students personally. Administrators know our schools, our families, and our communities. When a problem arises, it's addressed quickly, often before it becomes a larger issue. A district, as it grows larger, decision-making becomes more centralized and less responsive. Policies that may work in urban or suburban settings often don't translate well to rural communities like ours. Distance, both geography and relational, make it harder for students and families to be seen and heard. I'm concerned that this act could unintentionally weaken what already works well in our small supervisory union. Well, it's not too small. I urge you to protect the local governance structures that allow schools to remain responsive, connected, and student-centered, especially in rural Vermont. I really appreciate, I know you guys have got a gargantuan task ahead of you, and I really appreciate you coming out and listening to us. And I will say, like, I've heard other members that came up here at this microphone. You know, I just want to reiterate everything they've been saying. I mean, it's, this could change the fabric of our state, you know, not just in the education realm, but, yeah, I appreciate your time and, thank you.
David Scholes is on deck.
Margaret McLean from Peacham, Vermont. I am a steering committee member of the Rural School and Community Alliance. The Alliance represents 104 towns, like the towns in White River Valley Supervisory Union. These towns have all voted to join the Alliance, either by a vote of their school board or a vote of their select board. The Alliance has been listening to these towns since January. We also attended the task force meetings and read the input of the over 5,000 Vermonters who participated in the task force. The message is clear if you're listening. Vermonters are not afraid of change. Vermonters recognize the issues of quality and cost need to be addressed. Vermonters are willing to step up and help solve those issues by working in partnership with the state. Vermonters do not expect to be told what to do and forced into merger. Vermonters wish to step up and partner with the state. We need the state to be willing to partner back. Thank you.
Betsy Donahue is on deck.
Good afternoon. I'm David Scholes from Brattleboro, and you all look very familiar to me. I spent many hours watching committee work, and I've seen and heard a lot of the things that you've heard. So I'm really grateful that you're here now and hearing from parents and teachers. It's and hearing these beautiful children who gave me goosebumps when I came in the door. Typically you don't hear these voices, and this is really Vermont. I was a school board member in Brattleboro for 14 years. The last 4 were on the first school board. I was chair for the 2 years, of the 2 COVID years. And during that time, since we merged, we were forced merged. And during that time, our student numbers have declined, student performance has declined, students' emotional connection with schools has declined. All this is statistically verifiable. Our budget document now is so thick that it's just, the information is unavailable to the city. No one can understand what's going on. I have to rely on Public Assets Institute to find out what the per pupil spending is in the schools in my district. So you have demonstrated how to work in a bipartisan manner this year, and I'm really grateful to see that. I'm happy to see that, and I hope you can do that again this coming session. So I have a question more than a statement, and that's: will you take up the cooperative education services model when you start the session in January? I asked a question of Senator Hashim last night at one of our school board meetings, and he wants to, but he said it's up to the vice chair and the chair what you take up. So I'm going to ask you, will you take that up immediately? That's the first recommendation from the task force, and it's the only one that I've heard in 40 years, more than 40 years of being involved in education in Vermont. It's the only idea I've ever heard that actually makes any sense as far as saving money and creating a possibility of greater student performance. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you start, Kurt Albee is on deck. Now you're on.
So Betsy Donahue, I am a parent here in South Royalton. I myself actually grew up in a rural school in Vermont, not here in South Royalton necessarily, but a few towns up in Northfield. And I remember going through my high school experience wondering if there was something else out there for me. being a member of a rural community, being a member of a small school, I could see that there were opportunities that I did not have. I could see that there were things that students in larger schools were getting that I wasn't. But I will say this, what I had in a small school was people who were invested in me. I had people who were invested in seeing that I succeed and that I developed the skills that I needed to succeed. I went on to win multiple state championships in sports and to attend college, getting a master's degree from MIT in mechanical engineering, coming from a small school in the state of Vermont. So my husband and I, we both have advanced degrees. We moved away for a number of years. And when we decided to come back, because we knew that was part of our plan, we knew we wanted a rural school. We knew we wanted a place where our kids would be supported, where they would have people who were invested in their success. And we have found that here. I still think about what else is out there for my kids. What opportunities might they have somewhere else that they don't have here? And I always come back to the families that we are here with in this community. And I don't want to lose that. The value of that sense of community of those families is absolutely critical to the success of our kids and the success of our towns. So, I heard you say at the beginning of the session here, what this bill is all about, this act is all about, is excellent opportunity for every student. I don't think bigger schools are the solution to that. The solution to that is investing in our kids and meeting them where they are at to provide the opportunities they need to succeed. And that's what I want to leave you with today.
Thanks. And Asia, can't get the middle name, but Kenneth is on deck.
Good afternoon. My name is Kurt Albee. I live in South Stratford, differentiated from Stratford. I've lived there for 56 years. I could have ended up there by accident in 1969. And my wife and I decided to stay because we found out fairly early on that the elementary school there and the people who worked there were really special. And we decided to stay and raise our children there. And I think it was the best decision that we've made. My kids both graduated from the Newton School, incredibly well prepared for high school. They both went to Hanover High School. They both attended the University of Vermont and have successful careers. I have 2 grandchildren at the University of Vermont now and 2 children in the school system in Burlington. I went to a small high school in Arlington. My family moved to Vermont in 1960. That was probably the best move that my family ever made. I loved my high school. I think there were a total of 140 students in the 7 through 12 at that point in 1960. But school, and when I graduated from college, I taught high school social studies for 3 years in Vermont. And my experience, that experience and my experience in high school and my experience with my children in school, education is about teaching and learning. Teaching kids to learn, and at the same time, and I found this early on as a teacher, learning from your students, learning how to teach. Bigger is not better. Schools are about teachers. We need to recruit the best teachers. We need to pay them. And that necessarily has not everything to do with the size of the school, obviously, in my experience. When I stopped my teaching career in 1971, I worked in construction for the rest of my working life. And I'm holding here an editorial from the Valley News the 6th of December that says, to state the obvious thing, something is not a plan. And that was Governor Scott's description of we have to do something. And I can tell you from working in construction for 47 years, no plan is a plan for disaster. And I would, with all due respect to the Secretary of Education, who's also said in an adjoining article, we did our homework. Well, I'll put my teacher hat on again and say, I'm a giver and incomplete.
Jamie Daniel is on deck.
Hi, my name is Asha Labesha Kennett, first generation American. I moved to Rochester, Vermont 26 years ago from the Boston area. Graduated from Rochester High School and went to Middlebury College, but then left with no intention of coming back. And somehow I returned. And even stranger, married a dairy farmer. And now we raise our family in Rochester, Vermont. Our oldest daughter is 13. She's at Middlebury Union Middle School. We are lucky enough to take advantage of school choice, and for her, it's perfect because she will be able to take advantage of the agricultural programs that they offer. And her plan is to go to Cornell and then come back and run our dairy farm. The number of dairy farmers in Vermont is dwindling, so we really encourage her to do that. Our 9-year-old really had a hard time during COVID, and so we ended up moving her to Stockbridge Elementary School, which for her was perfect. The small knit community, her quirkiness came back. She really thrived in that setting. My 7-year-old is at Rochester, where he is able to have his reading at a grade above. He also has medical challenges and has a 504. I know that all schools are required to abide by the 504, but our school being so small, they've really been able to work with me and meet all his medical challenges as they come. Our 5-year-old is a thriver. He will do anywhere. He's never met a stranger, and so if you keep track, because sometimes I lose count, there's 4, 4 kids, and out of them, only 1 would kind of do well anywhere. So I'm a small dairy farmer. We've been told constantly that we have to milk more than 100 cows. We're not going to survive. We're not feasible. And yet somehow we found a way. We're creative. We come up with ways to survive. We diversify. We find a way. This morning I was feeding calves, and I had a calf that, checked all the boxes, right? She should have been doing fine, but I just felt like something was off. And I said to my husband, I said, listen, something's off with her. Her name is Starstruck. Something's off with Starstruck. Okay, she's not right. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, I see him tearing across the yard. Even though she checked all the boxes, she was having a medical emergency. She almost died. I saved that calf because I knew her baseline, right? I was able to meet her needs, even though she checked all the boxes. She should have been okay. But I knew her baseline. I'm a small farm, and we're able to survive because we can be creative. We can find other ways. And I feel like if small businesses in Vermont, small farms in Vermont can come up with those ways to be creative, then you, our elected officials, can also be creative and come up with ways to save our small schools and protect our children. Thank you.
We're having a hard time with the handwriting on this next one. Somebody from Sharon,
Nancy,
or is that an M?
Nancy,
And what's that at the end? This one.
from Sharon.
Oh, okay. Okay, then, Kim Moore on deck. That was easier. Okay, now
Hi,
you're on.
I welcome the opportunity to speak with you all. I'm Jamie Daniel. I've been a member of the WRUD school board since last March. And I joined the school board. I was encouraged to by people in my community, partly because of what we had heard might be happening with our schools. I'm glad to be here. I really agree and welcome all the comments people have made previously about the impact of these potential changes on our children. What I want to address here is something that has also been brought up, which is the argument that somehow this is a financially good idea for our communities. This may seem like I'm making a long story short, but let me give you a local example of how that seems to be false logic. 10 years ago, my now in-law family of a young couple moved here and bought a then dormant farm in Bethel. Where they were at that farm, they had their young son who was born. After that,
the couple's in-law, brother-in-law, and my son, who was married to the brother-in-law, moved here because they wanted to be closer to that family and they wanted to be closer to that child. The child's parents moved here from a very busy West Coast community so that they could have their child go to local schools and small schools and contribute to a small community. Shortly after that, I bought a house here and moved here from Chicago when I retired. I was an educator for 40 years and moved here. Shortly after that, the couple's parents moved here. Why am I bringing that all up? Because all of us moved here, bought houses, and contributed to the community because of that one child having moved here so that he could go, his parents said he could go to a small school and they could pick him up from school every day after school. Among the people that moved here, we now have 4 families, myself included, paying property tax, which all just went up. All of those people started 4 businesses. Among them, all of those businesses are contributing to the community and paying tax in the community. Several of those businesses have contributed to the Bethel Revitalization Project. One of them is a bar on Main Street in Bethel that I imagine a lot of people here might retire to after we have this hearing. And I know some people who are there pretty much every day as part of the social life of the community. I'm bringing that up because all of us believe that we are contributing to a community that cherishes our children, allows our children to be part of cohorts that continue all the way from grade school up through high school, if possible. The young child who everybody moved here to support is now in 2nd grade. He has a cohort of kids he's been with the whole time. Some of them are farm kids, some of them are kids of professionals, some of them are kids that are struggling financially, others are fairly well off, and he's learned how to get along with everybody and support everybody, which to me is part of the Vermont way. So I really hope folks will think twice about whether this is a financially good solution for Vermont generally and for Bethel and South Royalton in particular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us
Wait, are
the
you-
opportunity. Sorry, Kim Moore.
You're Ken, okay. So Eric Anderson is on deck.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our perspectives. You've heard a number of impassioned pleas from parents and education experts and been offered proof of how rural education can be a model for success for the rest of Vermont. I am the chair of the Stockbridge Trustees of Public Funds. I moved to Vermont in retirement after raising my family in 9 states and Canada. I'm here by choice and I love it here, as do my children. I'm not here to repeat what you've already heard, but to offer a different perspective about why our community school is critically important to our rural community and the fabric of our community. As you've heard, Stockbridge is a small and engaged rural community. One of the charges of the Trustees of Public Funds is to help residents in need with funds that are pledged to the town by former residents. In our role, the trustees work closely with the principal of the central school in Stockbridge to support families in need. Losing that close community tie will put families in need further at risk of falling between the cracks. Stockbridge supports education at all levels. The trustees support high school graduates with a congratulatory check when they graduate. We also have a tuition reimbursement program for secondary education. And we believe, as the town does, that education is important because it contributes back to Vermont. We need to have a strong a strong competitive workforce for the future, and the local community supports that in every way. The central school is the heart of our town, supporting not only education, but also healthcare and social services, as you've heard before. It enables our community to support each other in invaluable and informal ways that a larger school just wouldn't enable.
So please strongly consider the voices you've heard today as we move forward with education reform. Thank you.
And Elaine Burns is on deck.
Thank you all for your time this afternoon. I'm Eric Anderson. I moved to Chelsea in 2001 and began teaching at the Chelsea School, teaching middle school and high school at that time, science. I started out there. I quickly fell in love with the town, with the families whose students I taught. A few years later, I met my wife who was home visiting her family and fell in love with her. She wasn't my wife then, but Sue Cruzy, who's sitting a few feet behind me, married us on the hill out behind our farmhouse we bought. So, good to see you, Sue. Chelsea's a really special place, as I know a lot of people feel that way about these small towns. And our schools are essential to keeping not only the heart, but the backbone of these small rural communities. They provide so much for our families, and they provide so much for the communities as a whole. During the Act 46 time period, we in Chelsea did close our high school. It was incredibly painful. As someone involved in the school, it was a hard hat to wear, multiple hats to wear, to think about what is best for our community, and what is best for our students. I ultimately became a reluctant supporter of closing our high school because seeing what opportunities our high school students needed, I felt the time was right for that. Any further closing schools or consolidation for younger students, though, to me seems very unjust and inappropriate. To put 7th, 8th, 6th graders on buses and send them far away from their hometowns for potential opportunities, potential savings, does not seem worth the trade-offs. And those trade-offs are being close to home, being around people who know them and care about them, and the opportunities that our small towns and small schools offer. During Act 46, we visited larger schools. We looked at what they offered. We went to Manchester Middle School. They offered algebra to their middle school students at 7 a.m. and they projected their video to other schools. We currently offer that in our small rural middle school. We sugar under a timber frame sugar house that our students build. I don't know what other schools have those opportunities. Just because we don't offer everything doesn't mean we're not offering a lot for our students and our families and our communities. So maintaining our rural schools is essential for our students and the fabric of Vermont. Thank you for your time.
D. Jean Krause is on deck.
Hello, my name is Jane Kearns. I live in Sharon. I have been a volunteer at the Sharon Elementary School for 35 years. I was on the school board for most of the 90s. So I've really been involved in the school. I see the kids from, it used to be kindergarten, now pre-K, up to 6th grade, and to see the wonderful development of these children, especially the students who come in with behavioral and mental issues. They are supported so well in the small school. All the teachers know all the children. They walk in the hallways and it doesn't matter what professional or support staff person is walking down the hall towards them. They know them, they greet them. And the students, besides learning arithmetic and spelling, they learn how to be good citizens. They are all part of the community of the school. The town has started a Sharon Health Initiative that sponsors a monthly free luncheon, and every month a different classroom of students comes to the luncheon and interacts with the senior citizens. Now, if these students were far away, that would never happen. It's a wonderful opportunity for the townspeople to see the students and for the students to be with, for the most part, older adults, because it's at noon. The younger ones help decorate, they sit and talk to people, the older students help serve and prepare the food. Another indication of our community is our town just decided to float a $7 million bond of our small school so that we could bring the pre-K students from their falling down mobile homes or mobile classrooms that are way out of useful life and bring them into the school. Now, the town would not have done that if we thought our students were going elsewhere. One of the reasons people decided to do it was saying, well, if we improve our school, we show you that we want our school to succeed, we're gonna take on a $7 million bond to make that happen. I don't think that sending children on transportation for a long period of time can do anything but hurt them. As far as the Act 73, we have all been waiting for years to see what the alternative to healthcare nationally is, and it's never been presented. And in this atmosphere, why would we accept the governor's and the secretary's assurance that this is going to save us money? It just does not work that way. We need to either see some proof, some real numbers of how it's going to help, or for us to say, well, maybe. But as far as community, it's very important. Thank you.
Francie Slater is on deck.
My name is Gene Kraus. I live in Bethel and I am somewhat active in my community. Small town, a small elementary school, but part of the White River Valley Supervisory Union that I think is just the right size. I think there is much to commend it as a model for what might work elsewhere in the state, because I want everybody in the state to have everything that our kids have. One of the things that I enjoy as a community involved person is that I know these two women over here on a first name basis. I know Jeannie Canarney on a first name basis. And when I have a concern from my community or about my school, they are accessible, all of them. And you know what that is. You have constituents with whom you are involved on a first name basis. Sometimes they are a pain in the neck. I know that, but to be able to eyeball people, see their face when you raise a concern is critical. And so I want to put a word in for this not being too big, to be able to relate to one another, to be able to maintain local control, local involvement in the school. A long time ago, I heard a word, parsimony, defined not as kind of stinginess, but as the least amount that will really do. And that's how I look at taxes when I was on the Bethel Select Board. The least amount of taxes, but it's got to be enough that'll do the job. The least amount of busing, but enough that it will get the job done. And the job includes a good education. So I want to leave that with you. And I also want to ask, what happens to the schools we abandon? Sometimes for $1, they get turned over to the town. And now that building becomes an albatross on the town. And now we've got towns thinking about how do they put a couple $1 million into renovation of a building so that it can be useful. Those are side costs, 2 costs that need to be addressed at the legislature that are not education. Medical costs. We can't just accept the medical system we have now and expect that things are gonna get better. You as senators have a responsibility to see that we do something about reducing medical costs for all of our citizens. And second, we fund our taxes with our schools with property tax. Property taxes are a wealth tax. How much wealth do you have? How much is your property? Rather than a wealth tax, for many of us in Vermont, we are not property wealthy, but we may have better incomes. And an income tax is far more just, far less impactful on those at the bottom. I ask you to think about medical costs, and I ask you to think about our tax system writ large.
And Elizabeth Burrows is on that.
Elizabeth here? Okay.
Hi, my name is Francie Slater, and I am a Royalton resident, parent of 2 children here at Royalton Elementary School, and I also work as the farm school coordinator in Bethel and Royalton Elementary Schools. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Senator Weeks over lunch today. In the cafeteria here, we were serving local beef that was sourced by Roma's Butchery, a local business. It was the meat sauce and spaghetti, and we noticed the children were relishing and eating it wonderfully. And I just want to share the perspective that what happens in our school affects our wider community. And so as you think about changes to school structures, how is that rippling out to our communities? Elizabeth Roma is a small business owner. She worked really hard for several years to be able to be a vendor to our school district, to our SU, serving the 10 towns in the area. And once she was able to get all the permitting in place and the equipment in place and the staff in place to be the vendor that provides all of the ground beef that our students eat here, this means that she has a business of thriving. This means that she's supporting 23 additional small businesses, farmers in our districts who are sending their children to school, paying taxes here, doing the work that communities do to support our mutual thriving. And so I just wanted to share that perspective that, of course, what happens in the schools is really important, but what happens in the schools affects the community in so many ways. Just one small, very small example of how our interrelated communities really depend upon each other to thrive and survive. And not to mention just the benefits for our students to know that the food that they're eating is from their own family farm, or it's from their parents' business, or comes from the neighborhood that they grow up in, and what that needs to be known and be seen, feel like you matter as a real person, not just an anonymous number in a huge pool. And as a parent, I do want to share, and also as a staff member, just to echo some previous statements, that Superintendent Karani is incredibly present, available as a staff member. I get a response from him immediately, and I think that that support is really critical. And as was spoken before, those things don't scale in the same way that Elizabeth Roma couldn't scale. She couldn't serve 4,000 servings of meat sauce in her small local shop. And in order for us to scale to that level for our schools to be to that size, we would really lose that local connection. And what does that mean for our state? What does that mean for our state of agriculturists and farmers and land-based businesses? I think there are really big questions that the community should be looking at beyond the economics of our school budget. So really thinking about how does this impact our economics of the state on a larger scale. Thank you.
And Rebecca Stone is on deck.
Hi.
We know you. How are you?
I am Elizabeth Burrows. I am primarily a parent. I'm also a school board member of Windsor South Youth Supervisory Union. I'm a resident of Brownsville, and I am a representative of the Windsor One District. And I want to thank you for taking this time today to hear this public, and I also really want to thank all of the people who came because this is a tremendous amount of support for public education. I don't really have anything structured to say, but I do want to say a couple of things. One is that I'd like to start with the fact that school boards actually predated select boards. It's true. It's true. They were the first entryway in early American rural communities. They were the first entryway into civic engagement because rural schools were such a high priority for parents. It was a way for parents to be able to connect with each other and problem solve as community members. And that grew into further civic engagement and democracy in our states in their early formation, including in Vermont. So I think it's really important to remember that because that actually does apply today. It is rural communities are all we've got. They're what we have. It's what actually makes Vermont great. And I've heard from a number of constituents who feel as though the small schools and in rural communities that we all love and support and have been talking about all afternoon are backbones of communities, and that as such, they, the schools and the communities, and therefore the constituents and voters and taxpayers are being taken for granted and overlooked. I would also like to add that I want to, since I don't have much time left, I want to give you a few things that I heard from my constituents about Act 73. I've kept them informed every single step of the way because I am a school board member. They've known about H 454 in its various iterations. I've attended every single meeting of all of the implementation task forces and commissions and advisory councils and whatnot. So I feel my constituents are pretty well informed. So they ask questions that are informed questions. And here are some that I cannot answer for them. Why is there no data showing fiscal benefits? Why is there no economic analysis on forced consolidation? Why are they asked to take a blind leap of faith? Why income-based funding is not being considered? Why we don't simply pass the funding formula and set a spending floor? Why leadership appears, why education is treated like a business rather than the public good that it is, and why public schools are being starved while private and independent schools get influence. This is a tactic called starving the beast, which is used often by private equity firms, in which they cut funding for businesses, and businesses start to falter and they blame the businesses that eventually close the businesses. That is not the way to treat a public good. Thank you.
And Eliza Nucci?
It's on deck. Well, okay, anyway.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Stone. I'm a resident of Bethel, and I'll speak first as a parent. I have a 10th grader here. I believe you may have sat in on her English class and listened to her sing in the choir and listened to her play clarinet in the band, and now she's providing childcare for this event. I also have a 7th grader. That's a testament to her, but even more so to our small schools. They may not have every class offering that our big schools have, but they bend over backwards to give our kids the opportunities to be whole kids, to pursue these range of interests. If you'd shown up to a soccer game in the fall, you would have seen several of her teammates warm up with their team, rush over to the sidelines to sing the national anthem, and then go back and play a game. I am not convinced for a second that that would continue to happen in a larger consolidated school. There are so many opportunities we would lose. Just yesterday, a group of parents, many of whom are here today, our superintendent, our administrators and principals, sat down. They joined us and spent an hour and a half meeting with the group here in this building because we had concerns and ideas and wanted to share them. I don't think for a second that would happen if our districts and supervisory unions consolidate. I don't think for a second many of us parents would be able to drive an hour to be at a meeting like that, to bring our kids to soccer every day and pick them up again, to attend their games. In addition to being a parent, I am also a community planner, a small business owner, and a community organizer and committee member in our town. And I want to speak to that as well. In addition to all the concerns you've heard from people about the impacts on our families, on our kids, on our schools, I want to talk about the impacts to our communities. If the numbers added up and we really did save money under these proposals, which I'm not convinced we would, I don't think we've included all of the other costs to our communities, to our towns, and to many of the other causes that matter here in Vermont. As a planner, I've worked with many state agencies and leaders on our climate action plan, on our creative sector action plan, on community development plans. Our climate action plan calls for less single vehicle car trips, not more, less driving, more staying close to home. We're working on healthcare issues all across the state, working to combat addiction, the mental health crises. Some of the best strategies for that are building social connections, helping people meet, connect, be active in their communities. Sending kids further away, hollowing out rural schools, are going to undermine those goals, not improve them. So many of us have chosen to move to these small communities because we value that life. And if we lose our rural schools, we're going to be losing that. As a community planner, I advise planning commissions, conservation commissions, energy committees that one of the very best ways they can get involved and get input and get business done is to go stand on the sidelines of those soccer games. If we lose our schools, we're going to lose that ability. I hope everyone here in making these decisions takes into account not just the test scores, not just the tax dollars, but all of these externalities, all the many, many benefits our small schools provide, and all the many hidden costs that are not currently factored into the math. Thank you.
And Stacy Peters is on deck.
Good afternoon. I'm Eliza Minucci coming to you straight from Forest School at the First Branch Elementary School. I'm a resident of Tunbridge. My husband and I have 2 boys, 3rd and 5th graders in our First Branch Unified District schools. I'm an elementary school teacher in the First Branch District. I work for Antioch University, where I'm a senior adjunct professor of education, and I've been teaching graduate students there for 10 years. My husband and I have had choices about where to raise our kids, and what we have found in Tunbridge is a real village, a tight-knit, can-do community where it is a proud tradition to do for yourself and your neighbor. We can get milk bread out of the tank within a couple of miles of our house, thanks Gary. We can barter our maple syrup for beef, thanks Ian. We have an ice rink at our school that volunteers put up with a few drills of sledgehammer and elbow grease, thanks Steph. In Tunbridge, we have a volunteer-run food shelf, a volunteer program for helping folks with chores and rides to appointments. We have terrific public library programming. We have collaborative and active town committees. This place works. And you know what they say about Tunbridge? Somebody's gonna fill us in. It's not perfect, but pretty darn close. I want my kids to be immersed in this community where we all play many roles and make things happen for each other. I want them to go watch their neighbors play high school ball and sing in the musical and begin to imagine the choices headed their way. I want them to be nearby in high school themselves, still connected to the whole village of their youth, still helping build the ice rink on a cold Sunday in December. At our small community and in our elementary school, about 115 kids, this is happening right now. Our community and our school are working. We are taking care of our kids. We are teaching them to read, and we are teaching them to be good Tunbridge villagers. Don't break this. If you distance us from control and connection with our schools by layers of administration, by regionalized school boards, or forbid and by distance to get to our kids' schools, you will decrease the trust, communication, and goodwill that we show each other in town and in our dealings with school. Yes, plenty of places have bigger schools. They have more regionalized school boards. Let them. Here, we are raising civically minded, responsible Vermonters. Of course, we vote to spend money on our kids. Of course, it is expensive. Is there anyone who has raised a child who would claim to have living without spending right up to the edge of what they could? That's just human. When we set up government structures to avoid being human, what do we think we will achieve? It isn't wanting to keep our kids in small schools close to home. It isn't that that's pushing us over the edge. What is pushing us over the edge financially is a broken health insurance system and a broken tax system. I implore you to fix what is broken. Don't break what is working so well. Don't break our rural communities and our small and strong schools where kids, some of whom face really tough starts, are getting a tight wraparound community that really knows and owns them. Don't break that. Fix what is actually broken by taxing me more. Just by chance, my family extracts more out of the economy than shows up in our little house and our rugged acres. It's not fair that we have a lower tax burden than the farmers down the road. From my perspective as an educator and a parent, do not consolidate our elementary schools, do not set a minimum size for elementary schools, do not consolidate our school boards. Our small rural elementary schools are not broken. Go find what is actually broken. It's probably not in your committee. Make them fix it. Tax us more fairly and let us all live like a good villager does, helping out our neighbors because we can.
Chris Jarvis about that.
Hi, I'm Stacey Peters. I live in Hancock. I'm the chair of the Granville-Hancock Unified District. We live in Addison County, but part of the White River Valley SU. I am here, as some of you may know, Granville and Hancock don't operate schools. We closed ours, making the difficult decision to do so several years ago when I had just moved into town. And I will tell you that a lot of this conversation has been precipitated on the idea that population has been in decline, and we have to respond to that. Our towns show you that closing schools does not help with population decline. Our closing schools exacerbates it. When I moved into Hancock, we had a bowl mill in Granville. We had a hardware store in Hancock. We had a plywood mill. We had a general store in Granville that we couldn't even sustain as a school. Our towns have more or less become employment deserts. The only way these towns survive is twofold. One, as part of the White River Valley SU, we have some local agency. If I'm hearing from parents as a school board chair about transportation issues, and there are a lot of transportation issues, please invite me to come testify on some of the transportation issues. We're sending kids over mountains on buses in the wintertime. It's a disaster. But people can talk to me and I can go to the superintendent and we can discuss it with receiving schools and figure out solutions. We can figure out solutions to give kids opportunities where they don't. We give them what we can, but it's tough and it's a struggle and it only works because our small communities have people advocating for them who know them and who are their neighbors. We wouldn't have that under the governor's proposal. We would lose that by getting rid of the supervision structure, as I'm sure some of you have heard from others. And secondly, the only reason we survive is without a school. If you can't educate kids close to home, you need to be educating them in the same direction that parents are traveling for work. We live in an age of pandemics, of security measures that are too horrific as a parent to think about, and of just random illnesses and headaches. And you need to be able to kind of get after school without driving an hour and a half in the opposite direction and traveling for work. Those towns would then not be the employment deserts they are today, they would be total deserts. Families cannot sustain that. Since I have a couple of seconds left, everyone else here has already cited lots of good research that I'm sure you've already heard. So I will leave you with some wisdom, regrettably, on Reddit. I was doom scrolling the other night, reading a big long thread about Act 73 and its consequences, and someone made a great analogy that I would be remiss not to share, and that is the plan as it stands with the governor feels like going outside one morning, finding your car doesn't start, and deciding to change all of your tires. Thank you.
And on deck is Chelsea Gray. You're on.
Hello, I'm Chris Jarvis. Let's see, I've been a Vermonter for 46 years. So, I've grown up in this state. I've been schooled K through 12, and I went to Castleton State, graduated and, own a home and have put 3 kids through school. I've also been on the select board in Bethel for 10 years. I was chair of the select board for 8 years. I was on the school board for 2 years. So I've had some pretty good opportunities in our area to kind of examine and experience, the school system. My opinion is through that time is that there is no one size fits approach to that. And I think we all can admit that, there are small schools that definitely could merge with smaller schools. We do have a geographic challenge in Vermont with mountain ranges. And there are large schools that often are not managed well. And I think, from my time on the board, is it really comes down to a local responsibility level when it comes to putting together the school systems. And, my time on the school board, in and around the COVID era is, the federal government was inducing our area with lots of revenue. And what did people do with that revenue? A majority of people took that revenue and started creating, new positions, new pieces to their school, and putting them on a track that was not long-term sustainable. Our local government decided to use that money for one-time type fixes. What are things? Could we upgrade the boiler system in our school? So we smartly used our money rather than starting to just put a lot of pieces together that weren't going to be sustainable. I will say we are a product here of a school merger. And, Bethel and South Royalton, we merged our schools 7, 8 years ago or so now. And I would say at the time, we did not see the benefits of the projections that we thought we were supposed to get in the first 5 years. But the past 2 years, where there has been, 14%, 17% increases out there, our school district has actually had savings. So again, I think, there are spots where consolidation makes a lot of sense. And I'll tell you that there's a lot of spots where there's big schools like Burlington that are really having a negative draw on the education. So you can't all say we're going to be big like Burlington when a lot of the issues are Burlington. However, we can't all say we need a school if we have 50 kids. So there's definitely got to be a middle road approach on this. Thank you.
That was the last witness who has signed up, but we have, there's more. Okay. There's okay. We got one over here too.
Just 2.
So we'll start with Paula.
The phonetic spelling is the bottom.
Just let her tell. I'm sorry, Pavlov, I'm sorry. I thought it was Pavlov, and then followed by Tim Brink.
You have one on that.
Hello, I'm Kelsey Gray. I was cute.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Chelsea Gray. I am a resident of Sharon. I am a lifelong Vermonter. I was born in Heartland. I attended Heartland Elementary School as a young person, K-8 school, in a neighboring district. I currently live in Sharon. My two children attend Sharon Elementary, and I'm an educator in the neighboring district. So I come with a unique perspective of being an educator who works in a rural school, who's attended a rural school in Vermont, and I have taught in several different schools of different sizes throughout Vermont in my teaching career, which spans 20 years. So I've taught in Burlington, taught in Winooski, and I've taught in Hartford. And my children currently attend Sharon, and I chose Sharon to raise my family there because of the school community and because of the school choice available to us as residents. The reason I've stayed rural is because of many of the reasons that other folks here have mentioned, the strong sense of community, and local control, where I feel I can reach out to any member of my school board, the superintendent, the principal, teachers, anyone with whom I may raise issue, and know the people and trust the people who are involved in my school, and my children's education.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we got some, okay, you got it, you got it.
My name is Papa Blue, and I live in Norwich, Village of New Hampshire. So I think the community is right now very strong. And if I had to drive, so right now I drive 37 minutes just to get to school. And I think if you made schools later, then I would have to drive maybe 50 minutes to school every morning, and I don't think that would be good. Firstly, and so last year, for 2 years in a row, we've done bake sales. If we didn't have the community and support from our school, we couldn't have raised the money for the fire department, Leprechauns Day. There's so many things we couldn't have raised money for if we weren't a small community and didn't make those ideas. Last year, I somehow survived, acting in a show. And, right now my sibling is, she's acting in the show, and, she goes to Hanover High School. And she gets almost no sleep, and she has to take naps at school, so, and then sports. So this year, I moved at the start of the school year, and, I play soccer as my favorite sport, and I play moose. That is now very, very far away, but somehow I'm still gonna play moose, and the games are still very far away now. And I think without a strong community, I think almost every game last year I had to carpool with somebody. So I think without a community that can stay stable, and if you join communities, I know it's gonna get stronger, but if we keep them joining and making just a bigger school, I don't think it's gonna work, because there's so many people who need, chances, and I think everybody can be seen and have their chances right now, because everybody's getting considered and having their options for where to go, and, it's important to keep it how it is, because I think it could destroy so many things.
Chris Brown was the next person. Here he comes. He's coming, okay.
What's rude? I don't know how to soccer team.
Sorry.
Oh, it's the name of soccer.
Good. Hello, my name is Chris Fransky. I'm a resident of Montpelier, but I'm a 7th and 8th grade science teacher at Chelsea Public School. I'm here today representing the White River Valley Educators Association, representing, Sharon, Stratford, South Royalton, Bethel, Rochester, and Stockbridge. Tunbridge, I'm not, Stockbridge. I'm nervous. Anyway, while we're all educators working with children of our towns, we're also community members, parents, and tax donors. We know firsthand that property taxes are challenging, and we agree that a double-digit increase to our property taxes is not good for Vermont or the middle-class families who bear the brunt of these increases. We also know that Governor Scott's education reform demands will not address what he claims is an affordability crisis. In fact, his push for state mandated consolidation often increases monetary demands on communities. We appreciate the work done by the Act 73 School Redistricting Task Force and agree with their executive summary that there could be volunteer mergers and also cooperative regional education services. These recommendations allow for continued local decision-making control to determine if consolidation and/or sharing resources makes sense for students and communities. We spend our working lives thinking about what's best for students. We teach them, care for them, and listen to them. We urge the Senate Education Committee to prioritize students just as we do everything. Thank you.
We have a few more minutes if there's anybody else who'd like to. Michael?
My name is Michael Livingston. I'm a school board member in Sharon and a lifelong educator. And thank you to all of you for showing up today. What an incredible turnout. It's so important. Thank you very much. My comment is brief, but I think it's important to recognize an underlining managerial decision that was made by Superintendent Canarney a number of years ago that really speaks to a lot of what you're hearing today. And that is that he has utilized and implemented a really highly functional distributed leadership model here at this school in this system that involves staff, faculty, administrators, and really allows people to be taking full responsibility and have a full, strong voice in the work that they're doing. So a lot of what you're hearing here today is a result of the work amongst faculty and staff and administrators who are fully committed and invested and have an authentic voice in decision-making at all levels in our program. And as you think about activities that we can implement statewide that make a difference in terms of being responsible and reflective to our communities, it's something to consider as well. So I applaud him, and I applaud also all the work of our faculty, staff, and administrators. I want to thank them for their incredibly hard work. Thank you very much.
So I think that wraps it up. Oh, one more.
I'm a very reluctant public speaker.
Name and town.
My name is Charlotte Passio, and I live in Stratford, Vermont. But I have worked within the school systems here. I've been a nurse for well over 40 years, and I've been a school nurse for, I think I was maybe 24 of those years. Retired 2 years ago from the First Branch School. I was a school nurse in Chelsea for many years with all the changes and losing the high school. My two children were educated at the Newton School, and then they went on to we had school choice. They went on to the Sharon Academy. I believe they got a really excellent education throughout all their schooling. What I want to add to today as a school nurse is within the school, as a school nurse, we treat and help manage all children. But a lot of our responsibilities fall towards the children of need and the families of need. And a lot of my job was focused towards them between the meals and the food that we provide for those families, trying to provide them resources. I believe strongly that by consolidating districts further, we harm those children and those families further. And I just wanted to really stress that point. We saw harm to families when we merged Chelsea and Tunbridge, and it took a long time to improve that system. And I believe that the First Branch has done an excellent job with that. But making the drives longer, the families of need are not going to be able to provide for their children. as well as making it harder for other families. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent, all the staff here at the school, oh, there you are, and the students for really making us feel welcome. I think we felt that at every school we've gone to, and we definitely felt it here. And thank you for all you do. I think we all feel that strongly. We all feel that deeply. And thanks to everybody here for coming out. It really matters a lot for us to hear from you in a way that we don't always get a chance to. So these 5 hearings, I guess it's our last one. So I know has made deep impressions, each school, and collectively a deep impression on the committee about where Vermonters are, the things that are important, the depth of their caring for students and the depth of caring about their communities and making the connections. And so I think this will help inform the deep thinking that this committee and the entire legislature has to do over the next several months. We can't thank everybody here and everyone we've interacted with today enough. It was, by the way, it's been fun having lunch with all the kids each time we've done it. And it was fun today. We had spaghetti with the kids. It was fun. Thank you all. And I think with that, we are adjourned.